Good evening. I'm John Beard. I work for the Hazard Evaluation and Emergency Response branch of the Department of Health. I was just saying, I'm going to just be here a few minutes, but I'll be over at the health table over here for further questions about these issues. I first wanted to emphasize that all the information, air quality information about the various contaminants that we're addressing are all located on one website. This is the address up here. We call it the VOG dashboard. You can find the address in all the literature over here. And this is the one place you can go and find the latest information on these contaminants, from everywhere from basic information about what they are, to what you do for your catchment, to what's the latest air monitoring data from the monitors we have in existence. So use this resource. It's a great one. So the various contaminants, there's been a lot of coverage recently about the LAYS. This is actually something we've been dealing with for many years. Pu'uoa has been going into the sea, creating these same LAYS plumes. And as Steve mentioned, this is the lava going into the sea. There's 2,000-degree lava going into 75-degree water or whatever, and there's an explosion creating the tiny glass particles. And the reaction with the seawater creates chemical reactions that create hydrochloric gas, acid gas, and acid steam, basically. That's what most of that white steam cloud is. So it's a fairly, I would call it a fairly localized effect. As you know, in the past, when there's been observation sections to watch the lava go down in the sea, they would just watch the plume, locate people far enough away so they could not be at hazard to entering in the plume, and they're generally keeping people away from the general area of the plume. I also heard that the Coast Guard is trying to actually measure exactly the levels and just sort of how far out down the plume there might be a concern. So hopefully we'll have that data soon as well. The other, one of the other major contaminants are particulates. They come from two sources now. One is the breakdown of SO2 gas. SO2 gas, as it comes out of the vents in the lower rift zone, and there's lots of SO2 gas coming out of there. That's why people are being asked to stay away. It breaks down or interacts with the environment very quickly in the matter of hours to a day or two, to convert into small particulates, acid particulates, either liquid or solid droplets. Those tend to, in the trade wind pattern, they blow over to Kona side or out the south end of the island, and that's why we have had so much VOG on the Kona side for many years now, since these vents have been erupting. And the word about this is, for the particulates, these N95 type maps that are pretty common, people are seeing out there. They're effective for particulates, but don't think they're going to protect you from the gases. The gases pass right through them. It will catch dust and particulates. It'll catch these small particulates from the volcano, from the SO2 breakdown, as well as the particulates, of course, the ash that's coming out of the volcano. And of course, our Ka'u district is now getting tremendously impacted downwind from those eruptions. Hydrogen sulfide is another one we're looking at, and it's being, of course, there's the concern about PGV that you heard about, and there's also, which is the PGV concerns, and hydrogen sulfide are kind of well known to the community around here. They've been dealing with that issue for a long time. And then there is a certain amount of H2S in the volcanic eruption itself, and in 2008 it's quite low compared to this sulfur dioxide. So we didn't have much monitoring of H2S going on in 2008, but they're adding these monitors this year to kind of get a better handle on how much hydrogen sulfide is coming out with the sulfur dioxide from the vents, and to help determine if that is a concern or not. As far as I know, it hasn't been identified as a significant concern as yet, but this monitoring data is just being set up and coming in. And finally, sulfur dioxide, you've heard a lot about that. We have various charts that tell people exactly what level triggers what sort of response for the public. And these can be found on websites. We've been using this over 10 years. Recently, there's been a variation of this chart come out a little bit different, but this ties certain levels to a color coding system, and websites, the EPA uses this nationwide. And so we're in with that system and can communicate the SO2 levels clearly with specific response actions. The big point to reiterate here is Civil Defense is saying stay away from the area of these vents. It's a tremendous thousands of metric tons of SO2 coming out of these vents in the Leilani neighborhood every day. So that's nothing to fool around with. You need to stay away. There's a real potential for overexposure. We don't recommend gas mask type respirators to be worn by the general public for protection. There's just too much that can go wrong. They're generally not fit tested. There's no training. You'll see the employees going in there to protect you with that warning, with that equipment on, but they've had training, they've been fit tested, and many other elements for a respirator program that's required under law for those people entering those environments. Okay, finally, one last question that I'm getting a lot of questions about. So when do we get to see the new air monitoring that's being set up? They are setting up a combination of our state lab people, the State Department of Health State Lab, EPA, and now MIT that's out here doing a special project and bringing additional monitors out. So there's at least 3 major organizations placing more monitors out as we speak. They started last week. So that data is now, at least some of that data is flowing into the EOC, but they have to try to ascertain whether it's accurate, and they have to interpret it. And that's going to take a while, but they're working on it. I know they're working on it hard. And eventually then that data will be released to the public and or posted on the websites when they're convinced that that's accurate and available. In the meantime, the Civil Defense is watching those to be able to tell you if levels go high and you need to avoid certain areas. So they have eyes on that data and can act on it in the meantime.